And by the way, can you take a minute for you to like the video, for you to share the video, and obviously for you to comment on the video? If you do that, I will appreciate it big time. Now, about this video. This video is all about this topic. What's a server? Now, probably you think you know a lot about servers, and probably you do. But you see, the way that I will teach you this topic, it's on how you can connect other topics that you probably know that are related to this topic, servers, in a way that you can communicate that to other people, in a way that you can present it to other people. Or how would you market and sell yourself when you're talking about this topic to other people so they can see that yes, you know a lot, that yes, you have value to offer, that yes, you are a badass, an expert. How would you do that? Based on this topic. You see, that's exactly the process that I'm going to walk you through. And by the way, how will you answer a technical question related to this topic in a way that you will answer that question completely different from everyone else so they can remember you and not them? How will you do that? You see? So go through this video. And by the way, this is video number 1 because I decided to break down that content about this topic into videos. And probably you know why, right? I want to take the time to really give you everything that I have in a way that it's going to make sense to you, not just for you to know, but for you to be able to see it, for you to be able to process this in a way that right away you will be able to even teach it to other people. Now, if you are new, this is exactly what I'm going to ask you to do. And I'm saying new about the topic. And that's for you to go through this video not once, but twice. Take notes. And you better take notes, not the first, but the second time that you go through this video. The first time, it's all for you to think, for you to process, and for you to analyze everything that I'm going to walk you through. And if you do that, you will be able, again, to communicate this, even to teach it to someone else right away, even though probably everything that I'm going to walk you through is new to you. So, now, let's get back and go through this process. And by the way, I'm doing this because I'm so passionate about teaching you, and how to go through the technical topics in a way, not only for you to know, but obviously for you to be able to tell a story, for you to communicate that in the marketplace, with recruiters, with your manager, with executives, with other high IT engineers, because that's exactly what's going to put you ahead of the game. So now let's go and go through this process. So as you can see, we have this network diagram. And you see, let's go through it by doing this. Let's say that you are going, like right now, through the job interview process. And I'm the manager. And I'm going to ask you this question. So let's see how will you answer this question. So I give you this, right? I give you this picture. And I ask you, can you take 5 minutes, 5, not 3, but I will give you 5 minutes for you to tell me everything that you can think of, anything that you want to tell me, anything that's going through your mind based on this picture. And by the way, focus on the network and what servers do. So again, I give you 5 minutes for you to tell me anything that you can think of. Go! What will you say? What will your answer be? Again, right? You're not the only one going through this process, so think about that. How the other 10 candidates will answer that question. Think about that, because if you do, more likely you will do the same. And obviously, you don't want to look like everyone else. You want to answer that question completely different from everyone else. That way I can remember you, and that way more likely I can hire you. And not any of the other 10 people that are going through the same process. So if I were you, I will stop the video right now and I will go through this exercise, because probably, yes, you know a lot about servers, about a network. So what would you say based on this picture and this network diagram? Take 5 minutes, stop the video, go. That way you can see the way that I'm going to answer, and you can compare the way you're going to answer. And obviously, I will walk you through on many other things related to servers that will help you. But again, if I were you, I will go through that exercise. Now, let's say that you are back. So let's go through this process. okay? So if someone gets that to me, and I go through that job interview process, and they ask me that question, hey, Jorge, take 5 minutes and tell me anything that you can think of, and that's focused on, based on a network, because yes, this is a network, a small network, and servers. Go. The first thing that I will say is, okay, so I can see that we have 2, 4, 6 client computers. So we have 6 client computers. Now these client computers, more likely they have Windows 7 or Windows 10 operating system, and that's what makes this desktop and laptop computers client computers. Now more likely 2018, based on my experience, based on other conversations that I have with other people that work in other companies, more likely they're gonna have Windows 7. I noticed that when people have the budget and they go through the process and testing all the applications and everything else, because they have the staff and the budget for the upgrade, maybe they have Windows 10, but more likely Windows 7. And that's based again on those computers that I see right there. Now, for these computers to communicate with one another, they need to be connected to, and what I can see right there, it's a switch, a layer 2 device that works on the data link of the OSM arrow. By the way, there's 7 layers that basically goes a computer through this process of 7 layers so you can communicate with computer B, computer A to computer B. And switches work on the layer 2 of the OSM arrow, and that's again the data link layer, and they only care about MAC addresses, physical addresses. Now the other thing that I can see on that picture is that this computer is obviously connected to that switch, and more likely they're using a straight through cable. Okay. Now here, the computers needs to communicate with each other. They need an IP address, and that IP address basically they don't have that so far, what I can see. So they need to request. It will be a broadcast that will basically switch will be sent out, looking for a DHCP, and that's exactly what I see. I see 4 boxes. Those 4 physical boxes must be some servers. So one of those servers will be a DHCP server, and that's the one that's going to be providing an IP address. And by the way, not only an IP address, but a subnet mask, a gateway, and a DNS IP for them to communicate with each other. Now, I don't see a router, so that's no need for a gateway. If they're going to communicate just on the local area network, then just an IP, subnet mask, and DNS. And by the way, based on what I see, this is what we call a client to server network. Now let me stop right here. So you see, I probably was talking for about maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, and I'm not remotely finished and answering the question. But you see the way that I'm going through it and answering that question? And I'm doing many things. One, I'm going step by step, so they can not only get it, but they'll be able to see it. Because let me tell you one thing, many people, this is one of the things, issues that I have with many of my students in the coaching program. And probably this is happening to you. That when you answer a question, you are all over the place. So think about this like a movie. When you go to the movies, right, it's not for for the movie to basically go through and they're going to give you 5 minutes, from the almost and the end of the movie, and then they're gonna go back in the beginning, and then it's gonna go to the end, and then it's gonna come to the middle, and then to the end, and then it's gonna go kind of go back to the beginning, because you will be confused. You probably get it, like what's going on, but you're still confused. And when you're confused, your mind, it's wandering, and you're lost. And that's exactly more likely how you answer the question. So what I tell the students, my students, is the number 1, right? So what's after 1? 2. And what's after 2? 3. Not 5, not 6. So you have to tell me whatever you want to tell me, or whatever you want to communicate with me in order, so that I can see it. Now for me to get it, because I don't want to think too much, I need to see it right away. So that's one of many things that I was doing through this process. I'm giving you like the big picture. Now let's go back and continue and me answering the question, okay? So we have this local area network, and this is a client server network. Now in this case, when I was talking about the client computers, for them to communicate a minute ago, they need an IP address. Now, this IP address basically will be a a DHCP server will be the one more likely that's gonna give us the IP address. So at this point, as you can probably see, client computers are the ones that are gonna be asking for network resources, the ones that will be always asking for network resources, services. Now, servers are the ones that are gonna be providing the network resources, the network services. So now here, that's something for us to really think about and be like, okay, so we have client computers that are basically asking, and we have servers, and those are basically the ones that are providing what the client computers are asking. Now that we have this, now let's move on. Now, as I can see right here, we have 4 physical servers, and more likely they have either Windows Server 2008, but if you have a few Windows Server 2008, more likely that's because that's an application that it will not be able to work on Windows Server 2012 or 2016, because that's what happened out there. So you see, now I'm going through this point of view, not just being technical, but seeing the big picture. And right away they will be like, wow, you know, because yes, that's so true. You know, we have some legacy applications that, I mean, we cannot upgrade because probably the vendor gone, or eventually they kind of stop, you know, putting more effort and upgrading their application. So right now, I mean, we need the application and it can only work on Windows Server 2008. That's the reason why we have like 10 2008 servers right now. But you see, everything else that we have is 2012 and 2016. And the new one they came out was that is 2019. You know, when the new operating system, the Server 2019 come out, I was like, whoa. I was waiting on 2020. You know, I was thinking maybe Windows Server, the next one will be 2020, because that will be really badass for marketing instead of 2019. So I was like, what? But anyways, obviously I do not work with Microsoft, and obviously I do not work in their marketing department. So I don't know why 2019 instead of going 2020. I think it will be better for marketing 2020. Anyways, so coming back here, right? So now let me kind of give you like the big picture, and obviously on something that I will talk about in the next few minutes. But coming back to the question and the way that I will answer that question. So once I get to that point, I will be like, and by the way, you know, any of these desktop computers can be a server, and any of these physical boxes can be a client computer. You see, it's not for me to go to the store and be like, hey, can I have a server, a physical box, a server? No, it's all about the operating system. I can go on one of these boxes and install Windows 10. And at that point, that computer, that physical box with a lot of resources that we'll talk about in the next few minutes, basically will be a client computer. I can do the same here. I can go to one of those desktop computers and I can install the operating system, let's say Windows 2016. Now that computer, desktop computer, now will be a server. Why? Because I installed the operating system Windows Server 2016. So just have that in mind, because that's one thing that I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes. Now, the next thing is that we have physical servers and that we have virtual servers. And by the way, video number 2, my focus will be on just give you an introduction about virtual servers. I have 2 other videos out there about virtualization. Here, second video will be focused on this, on a virtual server. I have 2 videos out there about virtualization, okay? Now, when you think about a virtual server, you need to think about VMware and a Hyper-V. VMware and Hyper-V. VMware and Hyper-V. Obviously, Hyper-V, that's Microsoft. VMware is just VMware, the big-ass company out there. Okay? Huge company. Now, if you want to be a system engineer, a badass one, you better know virtualization really well. If you want to be a badass network engineer, yes, you better know virtualization as well. Not as much as system engineers, but you better, even though you want to be a network engineer, yes, because now a lot of the networking, it's also going on virtualization, so you better know that as well. Okay, so let's continue. So here we're coming back to our network diagram. So again, I see 4 let's call them boxes with many resources on each of those boxes, and I'm gonna come back later because we're gonna go through that process, and I'm gonna talk about some of the resources or services that the servers will be provided. But now, by the way, let me call them servers, and let me tell you why, because we're gonna install Windows Server 2016 on each of those 4 boxes. So let's say we're going through that process, right? We're gonna install Windows Server 2016 on each of those boxes. So we have now 4 physical boxes with Windows Server 2016, okay? Now, let's continue. Now here, let's talk about this. So we can start getting more into details about servers. As you can probably see here, we have a desktop computer, right? You see it and you right away be like, yeah, Jorge, that looks like a desktop computer, something that I can have at home. And then I have my monitor, and yes, that's my desktop computer. But if I do this, right, I take the cover away, you probably noticed something, right? You can see the DVD drive, USB ports, normal, like other desktop computers. But this one has 2, 4, 6, 8, and 8, 16 drives. Not 1, not 2, 16 drives right there. So this one is a big box, and this is something that we call a tower server. Again, it's not a server yet. I can probably see it as a desktop computer. Remember, what makes this box a server, okay, what makes this box a server is the operating system. If I go here and I do Windows 10, that's a client computer. Even though I spend $10,000 on that tower computer. $10,000. But with this one, right, I'm going to install, let's say, Windows Server 2016. Now, let's talk about the resources. Because you can go right now to Best Buy and you will be able to get a nice desktop computer for $1,000, a badass one. But you see that some other ones, they're just meant to be servers that will cost you $5, $10, $20, $50,000. Why? Let's find out. And that's exactly when we talk about the resources. The first thing that we need to talk about is the CPU. Central Process Unit. The Central Process Unit. And this one is all about the gigahertz. It's all about the gigahertz. Another thing to think about too when we talk about operating systems is that we have 32-bit and 64-bit. And now probably you're thinking, Jorge, come on, 2018, really 32-bit? Okay, more likely the operating system that you will have is a 64-bit. But I'm just putting that out there, same with CPUs. So going back here, i7, obviously right now there's some better ones, but an i7, depending on how many cores, it can cost you $500, it can cost you $800. Just the CPU, just the central process unit. Now, when I'm talking about cores, like probably going back, you probably have a computer that has a dual core, quad core. That means it's one physical CPU, but it has 4. If it's a quad core. So I go back to the price. Like I can have an i7, depending how many cores it has, it can cost me $500, $800, who knows, $900. Just the CPU, okay? Now, about servers. In your computer right now that you have your desktop computer or your laptop, it has 1. Those boxes, they're meant to be servers, they have 2 or they have 4. I have seen some of them, they have 8. 8 CPUs. Now and remember, there's some CPUs that cost more than, they're better than i7 CPUs. And let's say they cost $1,000 because yes, there's some of them that even cost more. But let's say $1,000. And I put, I filled them out with the 8. It's $8,000 just on the CPUs, just me getting these CPUs. That's it. No motherboard, no box, none of that. Just the CPUs, $8,000. You see how the price can go up really fast? Now, the second resource that we're going to talk about is RAM access memory. Now, obviously, this is not an A+ class. right? But you should know what's RAM. And more likely the computer that you have right now, your desktop computer or laptop, may have between 4 or maybe 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now think about, a server, meant to server. I see some that have 256 gigabytes of RAM. Imagine the cost. We have DDR3 and now we have DDR4. These ones, if I'm not mistaken, they are DDR4. And I seen physical boxes that have like 128 gigabytes of RAM. And they still have a space to add more. So you see, now you're talking about another $10,000 just on RAM. So CPU, RAM, $20,000. $20,000 just on CPU and RAM. This is why, it can go up the prices, okay? Now the next one is a storage. Like this one obviously has 16 drives. Not 2, not 1, 16 drives, okay? And obviously we need to know about HDD, the typical hard drive disk, or the SSD, the solid state drive. And that's like a USB type of access, when you can access the information right away. That's no disk in it. Basically like the normal HDD hard drives, okay? So those cost 3 times more. Like this one costs 3 times more than the normal ones that we use. But that's access the data faster. It processes faster. Okay, so that's the second thing. Again, one of these drives can cost you like $500, $1,000. And there's some other expensive ones that can cost you like about $2,000-$3,000. Just one. Okay, because based on what it's gonna be putting in, that's all their software behind it. It's not like going to Best Buy and be like, oh, I want to get the A external or an 8 terabyte hard drive. No, that's special for the servers. Okay. Now the last one that I'm going to talk about based on resources is the network. Most of the servers have 2. And some even desktop computers, I noticed, just the desktop computer that you can get on Best Buy has 2 network ports. But again, servers, I always see them at least with 2. Some of them, they have 4. But you see, more likely that's where the RJ45 port. But probably based on a storage, because on application, you're going to have to use a fiber optic connection. Now, if you're going to use that, you have to buy now the PCI card that you have to put in on the server. And that can cost you a fiber optic connection $1,000, maybe $2,000. So you see how the price can go up really fast. So now from $1,000 nice desktop computer, now it's going to $25,000, $30,000, $40,000. Just one physical server, okay? So just have that in mind. Now these are the types of servers that you will find. We have blades, we have the tower, the one that I show you, and the ones that you can just put in the rack. Obviously this one you can put in on the rack, but that's just huge, right? Now about this one has 16 total, 16 of these, obviously smaller. And I can replace those really easy. I can pull it out and everything else will be working. And each one of them can have 2 CPUs. Each one of them, each blade. Again, you can put it, I can take it out and I can put it in. It can have probably like 64, 126 gigabytes, just one. So this one with support and everything else, let's say from Dell, can cost you up to 100. If I'm not mistaken, probably 200K. That's a lot of money, right? But obviously out of this and use some virtualization that I'm gonna talk about later, I mean, you can probably do 1,000 servers. So yes, you know, like $250,000, yeah, it's worth it, okay? Obviously this one is based on what we used to many years ago. Oh, we need one application, we need to order a server. Well, it's gonna get here in 2 days, in 2 weeks. You know, then I have to install the operating system, then I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to call the vendor and do this. Okay, in the next 3 weeks, it will be done. That's what was before, you know, but when virtualization, that can take minutes. From weeks to minutes, that's badass, okay? Now, this is Dell, obviously. Now, HP, I pull up that picture. This is a tower HP computer. This is server. This is rack, servers, okay? You see here, there's two, another two here. This one is for use. This one is to use. And that's basically how many space is gonna be using on that rack, okay? You can tell that this one, they're thinner than these ones. And you see we have the same 16, okay, blades. And each blade has 2 drives, and obviously depending on the CPUs, memory, and everything else. And we have 4 power supplies, and basically how we are managing these blades. Really cool stuff. But you see, now you're getting the idea. Now you're putting names, you're putting things in perspective, and how you will be able to answer a question. You know, people want to know about when you say, oh, you know, like the other day I was working with one of the Tower Dell desktops. Servers. Or the other day I was working with one of those blades that HP has, the one that has 16. You see, now you are putting something in me for me to visualize. Never, ever, ever, ever be too technical. Ever. Don't be. That's not gonna help you. It's good when you're technical, but in a way that you can communicate other things for them to see like the big picture, not just based on a technical point of view. Okay? So now, virtual server, and that's exactly what's on the second video. So I'm gonna stop the video right here. Again, make sure to go to video number 2, obviously server part 2. And I'm gonna talk about it. Probably it's gonna take me 10-15 minutes. I will give you a lot of valuable content. And remember, everything that I'm walking you through is for you to really see what's going on and be like, okay, now I see what servers do. Probably because this topic was completely new to you. And what I'm gonna ask you to do too is for you to, again, like the video, share the video, comment on the video. And once you do that, go to video number 2, and I'm gonna go over this really quick so you can see it. That's fast. It's good. Let me go back again. It's gonna be badass. You will see it. So I will talk to you there.